Hey, you're listening to the One More Cup podcast, hosted by me, Deanna Harner. With over 20 years in corporate America, I take you out of the boardroom and into the real coffee chats that have actually shaped my path. So come for the coffee, but stay for the conversation. Hey, Rayfield. I am so glad you're here on One More Cup. Thank you for joining me today, my bestie. What have you got in the background there? What's going on?
Thanks for having me on One More Cup. I am pouring myself a cup of not coffee because I actually hate coffee. So I decided I'm a
I think we have to
teetotaler.
stop now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ray, for joining.
I'm a teetotaler, so I didn't have enough time to go grab a tea, so I decided to get a Diet Pepsi and put it in my favorite cup, which I'll put it up here, right here, so you can see it.
Nice.
Monday Night Brewing. And
Tell me about it.
it's a beer. Are you familiar with Monday Night Brewing?
Mm.
It's a brewery in Atlanta area. So spent a lot of time in Atlanta working with our clients and of course drinking because of such. So I frequented Monday
Here's
Night
to
Brewing.
that.
There you go. So one more
Why?
cup. There you go. All right.
There you go. One more cup of beer, coffee, whatever. We diverse in what we can drink on this show, so you're all good.
I promise it's pop. It's not any alcohol. That's later.
I'm
Maybe.
disappointed, Ray. This is not gonna be our usual conversation that we have at work if you're not, adding extra stuff to the drink.
Those are lies. I never drink on the job.
No, you just keep me on my toes, and, I wanna go back to when we first met, and I'm gonna share, like, how I remember it, and then I would love for you to iterate on how you remember it.
Yeah.
And so it was, I think, about a year and a half ago or so, maybe a year ago, we had changed organization structures, and you became a peer of mine on the manufacturing, CPG, and retail team.
Mhm.
And we had a kind of a connect call, just a 30-minute connect call, so I could figure out who this Rayfield guy was in data and AI. And I immediately was like, he is my guy. Like, you have not only just this fun personality that obviously comes across even here in these few moments, but both Midwesterners, you're a family man, you're funny, you're authentic. And the thing that sealed the deal for me, if those were not enough characteristics, is I'm a newbie in consulting. I've only been in 3 years. And when you said you'd been at Avanade 18, I was like, stop, you're
Yep.
my bestie. And I claimed it that first moment. I'm like, "I don't care if you feel this, I feel it, and you are my bestie," and that's what I recall. What do you remember about our very first conversation?
Yeah,
Hopefully, you remember it.
I think you're kinda spot on with what I remember. Again, I can't remember if it was a client call or if it was just "Hey, we're in a new team together" kinda call, but I think it was an instant click. I personally always look for people who complement or have a different way of thinking about things than I do. And I'm,
Mhm.
focused on tech and business and tech business, blah, blah, blah. Did I mention tech? Right. And then you
No.
were coming at it from a supply chain experience, lived it. And I'm like, hey, I'm in this new manufacturing group together. Who else to learn from someone who's done manufacturing and supply chain the entirety of their life. Um, and then also you mentioned Continental Airlines, and I used to fly them years and years ago. So I mean, oh, is that your cup from Continental or
No, no.
oh oh
Shh, having a moment.
there you
But
go.
no, I love talk about it all the time. Ex-cons were called, employees,
The
ex-con.
ex-cons. Yeah, so
Mhm.
I had the fortunate opportunity to learn from an ex-con is what I would
There
say.
you go.
And
Now that's a story.
the story in itself, right? And then, like you said, I think it was a year and a half. I think in that year and a half of working together, you probably went through Avanade for 10 years because you had to learn from a fire hose,
That's
right?
great.
So yeah, but I mean that's what I remember too. And then you just had some great ideas, and I think we'll probably talk about that a little bit later. But those great ideas we work very closely together on. So that's what I remember.
Yeah. Let's talk about it. So, after I declared that you're my bestie, I had this idea around a use case that a client had done at Avanade, where they had saved, I think it was 250 million, right, on using AI and data to really avoid revenue erosion from tariffs. And this was early on in last year. Like I think we started talking about it in February,
Yeah.
and so you were an advocate. You were like, "Yes, I didn't know the process internally. You knew the mechanics inside. I had the ideas from outside, and we took that." I don't think either one of us thought that the offering that we were thinking through and building for our EOU would end up becoming something we're on calls with Accenture and Microsoft who own Avanade, and like 200 plus calls over the last year. I know I didn't expect that. What did you think when I originally approached and we started kind of working through this Tariff Navigator offering, as from the beginning to, like, then we can start talking about the trauma maybe of the 200 calls together, but, let's start with the positive of the offering we created.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, again, very naturally, I think we went from 1 to 200 calls really quickly, just
We
because
did.
right time, right, right place. And I stopped counting. So I think you're probably the same way. I stopped counting at this point because I know it's well over 250, 300, some odd
Totally.
calls. Like
Yeah.
it comes up in everything that we discuss. Yeah, no, that's kind of how I remember it. I would say one thing I distinctively remember from our conversation was
Oh,
you saying, "Hey, here's the idea. Here's what we have done in other places, and it was more custom. Can the more modern AI approach work for this?" It was just like very general question from a technology perspective. Will it work? And the answer was yes, an enthusiastic yes, right? It was, hey, yes,
always.
this is an opportunity for us to continue doing more in this space. Again, I'm learning from the ex-con on how to, get around certain things and and work within the realms of supply chain. So I did think it was a great opportunity to use what we already knew from a technology perspective from Microsoft. So that's what I remember. And then every conversation led into bigger conversations, right? Because it wasn't just this was their problem, right? Tariffs wasn't
Yeah.
just their problem. We went into conversations around governance, and we went to conversations around fear about what is going to happen with AI going forward, conversations about security, access. Why do they need access to it, right? And then conversations around, hey, I have some simple reports in Excel. Can this help that? No, but let me show you what can. You know? It's like the floodgates were
Okay.
opened. Yeah, right. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I think it was a great 1 year and plus now because we're still talking about it, right?
We are still. Yeah, because clients are like, "We didn't figure it out last year. We're still managing in Excel. It's, probably gonna be a couple year, challenge. What do we do?" And so those conversations are still happening. What would you say, like, your experience was being in the trenches with me on all of these calls? And I mean, we had some calls. Like I remember 8 in the morning till 5 at night, right? Just 30 minutes, back to back clients, Microsoft, Accenture. What was your kind of remembrance of that, and what did you gain out of that? Because I don't think you had had that experience either at Avanade around one particular offering that was so intense. So what kind of did you take away from that now, sitting back a year later looking at how that was?
Yeah, no, I think for both of us, because the offer, and I don't want to speak for you, but I think because the offering is so new, no one was thinking about it. It gave
Yeah.
us a lot more flexibility, right? So we were able to introduce our own points of view and
Mhm,
blend that with what was industry knowledge. So
mhm.
the opportunity to do webinars, those kind of things. It became, hey, let's kind of, you know, tiptoe around how this offering works to, okay, we own it. Let's do what we want in these calls, how we want. I mean, that was the best part, right? It was just, you know what, we're the knowledge holders of this. So we're
Yeah,
gonna say what we want. I think, I go back to one of the first conversations that you and I had where it was, can I say that? I think it was you who were saying, like, can I say this? I think we say Excel chaos. And we both were like, no, it's Excel hell. right? And then we went from Excel chaos to Excel hell easily in conversations, and it just rolled off the tongue, and then everyone recognized that's where they were at. They weren't in Excel chaos, they were in Excel hell. They understood that, right? So
Yeah,
rather
you may
so
have in the PowerPoint Excel chaos
yeah,
or H with some asterisks depending on how you want your PowerPoint to come across, or if you're
exactly.
talking this, company versus that. But you're right, when we were talking to executives, CFOs, COOs, and we were saying Excel hell, like, not heads were nodding,
Yep,
and it's still the case today. And I think that's why the field as you're in and the technology that you support, data and AI, is like, it is the key. And then, like you said, my knowledge of how to make that effectively work in an organization that's complex, like a lot of manufacturing companies and CPG and retail are, was really the perfect storm.
yeah,
And then we picked a topic and the word that you didn't have to guess what our offering was about, right?
yeah,
You didn't have to read through the deck. Tariff navigator. We're going to help you navigate tariffs. And so I think that was all part of the secret sauce. But was there a moment that a call or like maybe like 3 months of torture in that you were like, you know what? This might actually work. Like, this may be the thing that, really is what Avanade is talking about for the next couple of months, at least.
yeah, I think it was, definitely was a call with our sales manager at the time, and,
Mm,
um, who I held in very high regard. One thing I would say is that
can you
both
say his name or no? Should we edit it out?
we can say Pete Hanaszewski, we can say it.
Yep. Midwesterner too?
Yeah,
Okay.
we could say it. Pete and I have a very similar mindset that, um, if you can't sell it internally or if you can't sell it to me, then how are you gonna sell it outside, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And he probably was one of our biggest critics, right?
Mm,
It wasn't the critic on the tool, it was the critic on the messaging and whether it was gonna
yeah.
hit home, who was gonna hit home with, and why, right? Because we had to not only convince Microsoft and our clients, but we had to convince internal to Avanade, right? That this
Yes.
is a worthwhile wedge to talk about and actually have a conversation around. And then it became bigger and bigger, right? We went to that first Microsoft call. I think it was me, you, and Pete. We were at the names conference. I think you remember this. We were sitting in the
Yeah,
lobby of the names conference
we
and
were trying to find a quiet spot.
headphones on, right? And the conference behind us. And we were having a discussion around Tariff Navigator with Microsoft. And the amount of you know, "Hey, I fully understand this. I understand the technology. I understand why you're doing this. And yes, the doors have been closed in front of our faces because we're not progressing conversations. We think this is gonna be a wedge to get that door back open." That was the, eye opener, right? So, I mean, we already had went through the gauntlet with our sales manager, so he prepared us the right way to have that conversation with Microsoft that didn't lead to them having a critical conversation with us. Instead of it was a supportive conversation. So I think that was when I was like, okay, we got something here, Deanna. Let's keep going.
Yeah, I remember that, and Microsoft was like, "Yeah, like, big deals are stalling because they don't know what's gonna happen in the economy." And so if it's not mission critical, like a security type, project, they were stalling on them, and it made total sense. We're like, "Okay, here we are. We've got this opportunity to talk about what they want to talk about." And it was one of the first in the marketplace. There weren't other consulting firms that had really an approach for tariffs at the time. So this next question kind of worries me a little bit to ask you, but I'm going to go ahead and just, lean into, see what my bestie says on this one. So after 200 calls together, what's one thing that surprises you still or confuses you about me? I'll tell you my
Where you are in the
confusion.
world? Because every time I get on a call with you, there's a different background, there's different nature. I don't know what's going on at any given time. No, jokes aside, after
That's true.
200
That's true. It's true.
it definitely
I
is
don't know
true.
myself.
Yeah. But where are you at right now? Just wondering.
The Ozarks.
Ozarks. Okay.
Yeah.
You're the Ozarks. All right. I'm still in the basement of my house. Um, so
We should talk to your wife towards the end of this to see if we can get you out.
I know, right? You need a petition to get me out of the basement here. No, after 200 calls, honestly, It has less to do about the offering, and more about, you realizing that you have been at Avanade long enough, right? I feel that sometimes we get off calls and there may be still a question. Hey, should we do it this way or should we do this? At this point, you did 1 year of you introduced an offering in that first year and you got the attention of a lot of our leadership. So you're at a point where I would say, we're leaning on your decision, right? We're leaning on your expertise. And it doesn't have to come back to, hey, Ray, let's have a discussion about this. I think,
Yeah.
you're at that very, very comfortable place that if you were to take it and say, this is my next step, this is how we're going to do it, I think people are going to listen to you. I know it's just a year and a half, right? But people are going to listen to you because you did open up doors when manufacturing was saying, hey, we don't want to have a conversation right now. And it's very, very hard because once a manufacturer decides they don't want to have a conversation, they will not have that conversation. That's
They
right.
don't change their mind the next week and call you up like,
It's like,
"Hey, Ray, just kidding, let's
no,
talk."
exactly, right? No, manufacturers are like, please lose my number. Do that
Yeah,
today.
call.
Um,
Yeah, don't even buy my product and give a
don't
review, I
even.
don't want
Exactly.
to. Well, I think I just wanna say what surprises me about you still, because this is gonna lead into the next conversation. You crack me up still. Like, you still catch me, like, laughing out loud obnoxiously on client calls because you do this, and it's the same thing almost every time. I end up going first to introduce myself, and then you follow, and you're like, "I'm Rayfield Johnson, I work for Deanna." Every time, and I'm like, like, so unprofessional,
Yep.
but I'm like it gets me every time because it's, like, so obviously not true, but so funny, and I respect you as much as, you respect me, and we have a trusted relationship, but, like, every time you say that, I'm just like, "Oh gosh, I forgot to say it first."
No,
So,
it's good banter on our conversations, and, I do enjoy the banter. I think our clients do as well because it brings some levity to the discussion, right? We can
yeah,
we can talk about
and
something
we're real.
serious, or we can start off with a joke and have fun, right? Because
Yeah,
technology is fun.
yeah. Is it?
It's really fun. The problems aren't fun, the technology, getting
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
that's fun.
Solving it with technology is fun, and to see the wins, right, on the
Mhm.
client's faces and so forth, that's fun. I agree with that, Rayfield.
Yep,
So, one of the reasons that I said you were gonna be my bestie was this 18-year thing that you have at Avanade, and I have been there a year and a half. There's been, like, multiple changes and iterations since I've been there, and in 18 years, it must be multiplied by thousands,
yep,
right? And so I just am always amazed at how you show up. We went to a year of calls and conferences and, in the room working with clients, some of them pushing back pretty hard on us, and having challenging conversations. And you just always show up like this. Like you just show up like Ray.
right,
And that's what I, like, try to gain just, like, 1% of Rayism in me, and then I'm like, "I will make it in consulting if I can take 1% of Rayism."
raising,
But
I love
the
it.
line that I love is after calls when I struggle with some people, and you know who I'm talking about. We will not name names.
Yeah,
And we're having a call after the call. We'll talk about that, and you're like, "I like everyone." And my immediate response was, "That's bullshit."
yeah.
It was like, Rayfield gets along with everyone, and you do. You are fabulous at that. No matter who's in the room, an executive or IT programmer or a colleague, like, you're amazing. But, like, I told you, I was like, "That's bullshit." I was like, "You don't like everyone. You get along with everyone." What is your response to that?
I feel that I genuinely do get along with everyone to what you
Yes,
said, right? I
yes.
do like a lot of people,
I would say yes,
and
yeah,
it's very easy for people to know if I don't like them, right?
yeah.
So I think my cheery disposition is purposeful, and if you encounter me when I'm not being cheery, then you're probably in that on that list. Everybody has a
Is that
moment
how
though.
I know if I've gone to the dark side list and
No, no,
some
no. Everybody
like
has a moment though, right? I mean, I just reality is there may be times where you don't feel like joking, right? And
mhm.
you gotta have to decide who you're gonna be that morning, even if you have bad news or a bad
Yeah.
situation happen to you. And I try to stay in the cheery disposition place, um, but not to confuse my seriousness. I'm actually a very serious person, which is very, very crazy, for people who work with me to understand. I'm extremely serious, I'm extremely competitive.
Oh,
Neither
yeah.
one of those come across in my conversations, right?
Yep.
But the reality is it is there.
Yes, it
But,
is.
yeah,
That's how
I do
18
love
years happens.
I will say that we work with some extremely brilliant people. And
Yeah.
because of that, I do find myself in a happier place. Like when I can go talk to someone who is an expert in this area, right? And it's
Yeah.
something that's different from me, right? I might not be an expert. I'm learning. Again, I'm learning constantly from an ex-con. This is a big thing, right? Um,
Yeah.
where
Ex-cons are
else
smart.
could you go and say, "Hey, I learned this from somebody who was an ex-con," as well
Yeah.
as somebody who is a data scientist, someone who understands
That's
modern work
boring.
better than any other,
Modern.
Microsoft team member, right? Those kind of things. So I do benefit from that. So I'm in a happy place because of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are people I don't like. You don't know.
Yeah. I was right.
You
I
don't know
was
any of
right.
them. So
Well, I don't know. I've been on one, I think I've been on 2 calls where I saw that other side of you. But, like, 2 out of 1,000 or whatever we decide the number is pretty damn good. I think on my side, the count is higher on the ones that you could tell I didn't like the person I was talking to. So,
yeah.
you definitely are so savvy in how you approach it, and I know you're competitive, you're successful. I mean, you're executive at Avanade, you've been doing this for 18 years, you're iconic at Microsoft, which is a huge technology giant in the space. So, I have to ask one more question on politics and your perspective, because I do think this is one of your superpowers. How do you navigate politics without becoming political?
Good question. Really good question. You went from Ray have playful time in the call to
You just said you were serious,
I
and
know,
we
you're
didn't know
like,
the other,
how
so
are
I'm gonna
you
pull you
how do you
over
do
there.
this?" Right? That's a good question. In surviving in Aventic Accenture and to your point, Microsoft conversations and client discussions as well, avoiding politics, it's, very easy for me because I just listen. Honestly, that's the best way that I navigate them. I don't
Oh,
jump immediately into my point of view. I try to listen to both sides, 3 sides, 4 sides, 5 sides, whatever it is, right? To really understand the situation. My opinions typically happen to be my own. I don't like to, navigate and say I'm gonna be on the left or the right or the middle. It's wherever Ray is in that spectrum, right? So that's how I navigate it. I think people typically appreciate point of view more than they appreciate a bandwagon. So,
mm,
with that being said, there are a lot of things that I don't agree with. People like you know this, right?
yeah.
There is a complexity of enterprise AI. I think the quick solve for people is, hey, let's use something that's a bit more low code. It's a bit more in like a modern workspace or even like typically like Copilot, like very, very early on AI. I'm not a believer that the enterprise AI space is so much of a leap anymore. So I do gravitate to let me show you how to do these things, right? As
More
opposed to
complex.
agreeing that things are hard or not as hard. I'd rather be an enabler and then someone who says, hey, that's too difficult for your team. So again, I stand on my own politics with that. I don't lean one way or the other. I love all the technology. I like
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah. Everyone, technology included,
Yep.
software platforms included.
Exactly.
Uh, we're gonna stay on the serious note. We're not
Ah,
gonna go back to the humor yet, but I promise we'll end with it, and we'll talk about the kids and all that stuff too.
cool.
But what has 18 years in consulting taught you about human nature?
Speaking of kids, I would say that,
Yeah.
18 years in consulting, I mean, it's really funny though, but being married to a principal,
Uh,
I realize a lot of what she goes through and what I hear her complain about are the same things I see in grown-ups. So,
Mm,
human nature, I don't think people.
sorry. Yes, 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 cheers.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I remember one of my first conversations with her about our job, right?
Okay,
It was sitting in a room with an executive that threw a tantrum. And I mean, like,
okay.
it was full out tantrum. And
Yep.
it blew my mind. I was very early on in consulting. And I went to my wife and I explained it to her. And, she said, "Oh, yeah, that person has opposition defiance disorder." And I
Oh
never
my
knew what
god.
that was, but when I explained it to her, she's like, "Yeah, that's probably someone who may be aware or may not be aware that they had that their whole life." Right?
Well,
And then I
yeah.
started looking at other people and I'm like, I can see a glimpse of what they may have been like as a kid because of, my wife and all that kind of stuff. So she's a educator. She's not an ex-con, but she's an educator in our household. And I do appreciate her teaching me more about human nature. I will also say that when people are dead focused, especially our clients or even our partners, I won't name partners, but when they're dead focused on yes or dead set and their focus
Yeah,
is there, right? They are set on, hey, this is what I believe in. It takes more than evidence to change that natural inclination they have. You can show
yeah,
them pictures of the sky being blue.
yeah.
and and they will tell
Oh,
you, "Sir, that is a black sky," right? The
yeah,
whole time they will double down on it, right? Human nature is to I would definitely say it's in a lot of people that it's to be right.
yeah,
It's not to be a compromising person. That's very rare that you run into those type of people in consulting. Even when they may have agreed with you in a previous conversation, they still may have been doing that from the purpose of, getting their own agenda across. So
yeah,
it takes a
exactly.
lot. It takes a lot of conversations to build the trust with that person. Everyone, that we deal with is looking for trust. They're looking for trusted advisors, right? Trust does not equate to agreeing with. So,
No, absolutely. Yeah, you and I don't always agree with each other, but I know I have your back and you have mine,
yeah,
right?
it's very
And
hard because I am 100% of the time right. And yeah. Anyway,
hmm, yeah.
go
I'm
ahead.
like, so in your career, Ray, who has given you a hard time like you have given me? And how is that? No. And I really do want to hear a little bit about your career and who's advocated for you. Because I think a lot of time when you learn to be a servant leader and to advocate for others like you do, me and others at Avanade, there's somebody who's done that to you, right? And who is that person or what was that situation? And how do you think it shaped who you became as a leader?
Oh, yeah. No, it's a good question. It's a really good question. I'm gonna start with people in my career, how that
Okay.
works. So, um, first of all, to answer your first question, were there people who have given me hard time in my career? Yes, a lot. A lot
What?
of people have given me a hard time, and they shaped me into the person I am,
Yeah,
who likes to have fun because they weren't always having fun, right? So I'll just say it that way.
so important.
I won't say names or anything like that.
We'll
Shout out
spill
to
the name
I'm just
at
joking.
the end of the episode.
I know, right? We'll put it in the credits,
Yeah,
in the
exactly.
credits of the
All the
episode.
people who made Ray amazing because they weren't.
Exactly, exactly. But the people that were amazing, I again, to your point, I've been at Avanade a long time. So each one of our CEOs had some, part in my life. And I appreciate the kind of leader that they are and were or whatever, right? Um, Yeah, probably the most recent one, Pam Maynard. She was a
Okay,
big advocate for me and intentionality. I've never
okay,
met a more intentional person who pushed you to be intentional, right?
okay.
So, and what I mean by that is, I'll give you a good example.
Yeah, I want it, tell me more.
When I first met her in person, it was pretty cool actually, like, in person at an event. She was in the Chicagoland area. We went to the White Sox
Where's
game.
that? Where's Chicago?
Chicago so I say Chicagoland, but we're actually in Chicago. We were at the White Sox game, and, I
Okay.
was invited. I was able to go to the game because she was there and a few other of our executives. Our whole, like, executive committee was there. in Chicago, basically. And, I was sitting back again, I had already been at Avanade 14, 15 years, maybe a little bit less, maybe about 14, 13 years, right? Um, but there was moments to actually speak to people in the box and remember that they are people. I say that a lot. You gotta remember that the people you
Hmm.
work with are people. They're not
So
statues that you just go up to and you say, "Hey, let me go ahead and worship this statue." Shouldn't worship statues, that's another thing. But
yeah, there are rules around that,
there are
but go
rules.
ahead.
There are rules, and people will tell you to get away from statues, right?
That's the
Um
Deanna Rayfield statue. Those are the exceptions, I believe, but besides that.
Exactly, exactly. But, in that situation, she literally I think I was putting, like, a hot dog on my plate or something like that, and she told me, "Come over here." She's like, "Come over here, Ray." And, I'll never forget this because we were not only having a good conversation, but she was slowly but surely introducing me to the people in the EC. It was an
Wow.
intentional moment because I was very fortunate to be in a place where the EC was there and it wasn't, just talking about a client. There was opportunity to actually introduce myself so that they knew who I was. And
Yeah.
every other interaction I ever had with her was all about intentionality. If you have the audience, if you have the people in front of you, then you need to talk to them. You don't need to just be a fly on the wall. They don't care that you're in the place. You have to be active. You have to be
Yeah.
in the conversation itself. So that
Yes.
that amount of intentionality, um, is very important as you're moving, further and further in your career. You can't be the kid in the closet who's like, "Hey, I'm just gonna type and do this
Work
Databricks,
hard.
database work in the background." I said Databricks, shout out to Databricks, but I meant
There you
database. Um,
go. For One More Cup
one
podcast.
more cup. There you go. But in all seriousness, you have to be intentional. So,
Yeah.
and I take that with everyone I work with as well. So when I'm mentoring people within an organization, I don't say whose name I'm mentoring, right? But I do want them to move in that same motion, right? If you have an opportunity and the CEO is sitting next to you, or if you're having a conversation, the client sits down, you don't know who they are, still talk to them, right? Because you might be surprised that you're sitting next to a VP. You might be
Yeah.
surprised you're sitting next to an owner of a business, and you learn a lot from people by being more intentional and not just being present.
I talk a lot about that to younger professionals, and, they're just doing a good job showing up and expecting their manager to do the rest for them. And, one of those mentors was like in a room and an executive said, "Hey, great speech or great presentation." And I was like, that's the opportunity to say thank you and continue that conversation with them, right? And really start building that relationship and getting that time with them because it's invaluable what they can share, even if it's just about their career and their journey. You can get a piece of that. And I'm like, always be open, always ask. There's nothing wrong with just saying, "Hey, do you have 30 minutes so I can learn more about your journey at Avanade, Ray? And how you've succeeded and what I can learn from you." And I think most leaders want that, right? They want to give back and they want to talk about their journey.
Yeah,
So that's great that she advocated for you. So shout out to Pam.
Pam is
Great,
awesome.
great advocating for my bestie here.
Pam is
So I
awesome.
know we only have a little bit of time left, Ray, but I want to talk about probably the most important thing in your life. I understand from Facebook, LinkedIn, chats,
Who let
conversations
you in
with
my
you
Facebook? I have to
that you got
up the
two
security. I gotta up the security.
adorable. I'm not answering that. Like, you have me on all your social media as a favorite. Um, so you're a dad to 2 small sons or 2 younger sons. You are a coach. I don't even know how many, appointments you have outside of work appointments because you seem to be constantly busy with work and home, which makes you such an incredible human being. And then you talked about your wife and shout out to her, like being an extremely accomplished educator in today's world. My partner was in education, a teacher for, 25 years, and that is not an easy task.
Mhm.
So I really want to, give you a moment to reflect on the life outside of work, how important it is for you to like shut down Avanade and go into dad, husband mode.
Yeah, it's very important. It is my full-time job, right? Your full-time job is your family. It's your your moments that you leave them with, right? And the time you spend there is recorded mentally throughout the
Oh,
rest of their
God,
lives, right? So
sure. Mhm.
that's where I am probably the most serious. But I play. I have a lot of fun with the boys, and that's why coach is fun. Going to the games, going to every like music recital, that kind of stuff. It's great. And I have two boys. You did mention I have an 8-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I learned from my father, another person who was an advocate and a mentor to me. I learned from him that regardless of what you are doing at work, you make the time for your family. My dad worked in a steel mill where he worked overnights. And instead of going home to go to sleep when he had a long shift, he would go to my football game. Right. So,
Wow.
or he
Love
would go to my
that.
brother's, right? We always could look in the stands and see dad, right? So
Mhm.
that's very important, right? And I never want to give my kids less. I always want to give them more. So I will never give them less than what my dad gave me.
Love
So
it.
I make the time to be a coach. And it's not that bad. It's not that intensive, right? You're teaching them routes and soccer and stuff like that. It's like it's very
Kinda like
easy.
technology programming, right? It's
It's
just,
yeah,
how to
yeah.
program field moves.
Exactly. And they're teaching me too, because they're teaching me a corny moment. They're teaching me about life, right? So
Funny.
super
I
corny,
learned that
but
you
it is true,
recently.
right? The things that I'm gonna show them around, the sports and good sportsmanship is very important to me because that's another thing I notice. You going back to human nature, being in boardrooms, you can tell who played sports when you're in a meeting with them and you're like, that person never played sports. They're very selfish.
Or
or
they were benched a lot.
or they were benched a lot. Yeah,
They were
they
benched
didn't
a lot,
understand
yeah.
the team dynamics, right?
Yeah.
Not trying to be rude or anything like that, but there is a lot of studies around how sports encourage, working together, teamwork, innovation. So in our field, right, in consulting, I do think it's very important for people to understand team sports. And again, your team sport could have been playing chess, right? That's still a sport. You learned something, you were learning from someone, right? And it may have been a team of one, but you understood how to interact on, cross from somebody, right? So, no bad answers here, but um, I definitely do think that's important for me as a father. And then I have a very, very good, partner, my wife, right? You talked about education.
Love
They're
for
just,
her. Just shows up when you talk about her. I have to tell you, I need to meet her because,
yeah,
like, she's
you definitely
incredible with
do.
the way you elude your respect for her and love. It's
Oh yeah.
amazing. Love it.
Yeah, I love her to death, and she even encourages my, spending all my money at Buc-ee's, right? So, that
And barbecue
the
and
barbecue sandwiches and buying more smoker stuff at the house, she
yeah,
encourages all that. So,
love
um
her.
but yeah, no, it is true that, again, like to what you were saying earlier, having that good partner, when we have a very, very hectic lifestyle. I mean, I've been on the road flying every week for the last almost 2 months.
Beautiful.
Like full weeks in front of clients, in front of Microsoft with clients, in front of clients with Databricks, those
Which
kind
is
of things, right?
intense and draining.
So we have a
Yeah,
hectic lifestyle and we got to make sure we have the right support system around and we do the same for them, right? Whether it is a significant other or if it's a friend or again to your point earlier about family, right? I know your daughter, you was your support system for a little bit, right? Probably a
yeah,
lot of bit. She's probably like, Mom, I'm just supporting
she's
you so
huge.
much.
Yeah. She wants time off, that's why she's in Boston and not the Ozarks right now.
She's like, yeah,
Here's
mom, you,
Kathy,
you
wait,
should
I'm
you
coming
should go to the
too.
Ozarks, Mom. You should do that. Do that right now.
Yeah, who bought this house, me or Cassie? That's the question. I'm not
Exactly. But yeah, no, it's very important. It really is important to me, and I do light up when I talk about my family. I do.
You do, and I think we could have one more cup episode just about Ray, barbecue, Buc-ee's, his kids, his family, and maybe we invite the sons and wife on and, like, get their perspective on Rayfield. That would be amazing. So, invited back anytime you can convince your family to go on camera and let's hear about the, the important side of Ray that shows up at work and at home. And I think you show up the same way. Quite honestly, the way that you've described yourself is the way you just show up at work, with intentionality, right? And support is how you show up with your kids and family. I have
Yep.
one wrap up question, but I could talk to you, as you know, forever. Because usually on our work calls, like it's like just talk about Ray, and then it's like, okay, we got 5 minutes to talk about
Yep.
work. I feel the same way on this on this day with Ray. But what's one lesson that you've learned in life the hard way? But that's usually how we learn. I guess it could be the easy way if you're lucky. That you now try to teach others early on in their career and lives.
Oh yeah. That's a very easy one. Because it takes me back to early consulting days where I thought I was a superstar and I could do everything. Um, I would definitely say, and I say this in interviews that I do for Avanade as well, you should always assume that you know nothing. And what I mean by that is um, the problems, the technology, blah, 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 whatever, right? Especially the technology. You may be an excellent in a technology, but know absolutely nothing about the business. So assume that you know nothing so that you actually get more in the conversation, either with people you're working with or the clients themselves. They're going to give you way more than you walked in the room with. Right. So
Yeah,
I did run into a lot of situations early on where I'm like, this batch job is working the right way. It's moving the data. It's going into this area. And I completely missed like taking care of nulls. I know this is getting a little technical, right? But taking care of
yeah,
nulls that completely threw off reports or made a client, if they had not caught this, it would have made them make the wrong decisions in like purchasing. Like, can you
yeah.
imagine like, this hot shot, hey, I'm a analyst. I know exactly what I'm doing.
I work for the
I've read all
firm
the
of
Microsoft books.
at Microsoft.
But, slowing down and realizing that I knew absolutely nothing, allowed me to learn what consulting was and what
Yeah,
it could be, as well as what leadership is and what it can be, right? I've learned
yeah.
to again, I mentioned Pam, had I gone into that room thinking I'm the crap, or the SHIT, I don't know if we can say that on podcasts.
Shit, we already said hell. I think we say shit.
Hell, I can say that, okay.
I can say it.
But in general, when you think you know everything, you know everyone, you walk around with a, barrier around your own
Yeah.
brain of bringing in people, right? Bringing in more topics, bringing in more details. So I assume that I know nothing.
And I think that's when I went into consulting, I wanted to be that type of consultant, right? Who listened and who advocated for the client. But to advocate, you have to listen,
You have
right? You
to.
have to put yourself in their shoes. And that's probably one more reason that I was like, he's going to be my bestie, whether he wants to or not. Like, he's mine because you do show up that way for people, your kids and clients, as I'm going to listen. You don't come off as I've been 18 years. I'm than anyone, and you probably do, but you come off as, "Let me hear and listen. I'll share what I know when you ask me or when it's, the time to do so."
Yeah,
And it's so important to give the other person in the room time to talk
yeah.
and
No,
you to listen, and you really do listen to people, and that comes across, and then your way of using humor to help with politics and help with easing tensions is classic. So, Ray, thank you for one more cup.
all right.
I could talk to you,
I
you know
appreciate you, letting me on this show. I know it's not coffee because coffee is terrible, but I appreciate you bringing me in with a
What?
Diet
What?
Pepsi. Before you say anything, I'm gonna go ahead and leave. I gotta get out of here. I got a client call. They appreciate Pepsi where I'm going. So,
I
thanks for
hope.
having me on the
I'll
call.
hear that. Bye. Thanks for listening to One More Cup. If this conversation sparks something for you, don't ignore it because the people who move forward in their careers aren't waiting. They're having real conversations, honest ones, the kind that help you think differently, see differently, and move forward. So go start one, and I'll meet you back here for another cup. I'll see you next time.